would like to invite Guy Galon, the Chief Customer Success Officer at Obrella and founder of the CS Cycle. With over 2 decades of experience, Guy is a strong advocate for evolving customer success into a strategic driver of revenue growth. His multifaceted approach blended unique best practices, positioning him as a leading voice in the CS community. Really, Guy, it's my honor to welcome you on stage.
Welcome to the session about from insights to impact and how customer success can actually impact the revenue and shape the revenue forecasting and planning in your own organization. But let me start with a short little confession. It's not yet standard practice, and your CFO and your CRO in your organization may not be fully aware of the value that you can provide to the revenue forecasting and revenue planning. And it might be even challenging for you to persuade them. But hey, in customer success, it's all about addressing challenges. So let me start first about to make sure we understand why it's a challenge, why it's not a standard practice yet. And I would like to relate to the connection, the very strong connection that we have between our customer insights and revenue. And customer insights is our understanding of our customer environments, requirements, the use cases, what makes them actually become successful. And in recent years, and I think we had a panel here that was talking about commercializing customer success in the morning, it's all clear that we all sell. Customer success sell. And when I say sell, from my perspective, it's mainly the revenue execution side of things. So, and for the simplicity of this discussion, for this session, I'm assuming sales and customer success are jointly responsible for renewals and customer expansions. So from that perspective, I believe in recent years, customer success made a significant progress and improvement in actually being much more commercial and much more able to drive revenue into the organization. The interesting thing, from my perspective, is that the same insights that we have for revenue execution, they actually very much and super beneficial for the revenue planning and revenue forecasting. And don't be mistaken, right? Any sales, if everybody sells, that's fine. The question is, how do we plan for it? How do we forecast it? And I believe this is the one place or the one area in which customer success can still provide a lot of value in our own organization. And why we can do it? Because we can. Because we simply have the information, we just need to tune and understand how we leverage all those insights. And since we're going to collaborate with sales, with finance, we're going to talk about revenue numbers. Let me start with 2 quick reality checks. And the first reality check comes from Emergence Capital. And Emergence Capital invested for more than 20 years in more than 100 B2B SaaS companies. And they ran in 2024 a survey for 600 companies asking them about the revenue mix. How the revenue mix, when I say revenue mix, between new logos, new customer, and existing customer revenue. And you can see, and it's not surprising, that as companies scale and grow, the portion of the revenue of customer engagement actually increases to the extent that around between $50 to $100 million, it's almost the same, which is very good news for us in customer success because we know our customers, we know how to engage and grow them. So we are in the heart and soul of the revenue engine of our own organizations. And this is what our investors expect, this is what our management expect, the board expects. So we are there to actually make an impact. That's on the revenue, what I call the revenue execution side. That's reality check number 1. Reality check number 2 comes from Bessemer. And Bessemer, if you don't know, they are very reputable VC. They invest globally, they invest in Israeli startups. And they presented this very nice graph that tells us a story that we may already know, that the cost of acquisition of $1 ACV is much higher for new logos rather than renewals and cross-sells and upsells. But the gap is huge. It costs, if you look at the graph, 10 to 15 times more to bring $1 from a new logo versus renewal, or 3 to 5 times more then expansions and upsells. And from my perspective, if I am a CFO, and we'll meet the CFO in a minute, it's not just about revenue and how we increase our revenue, it's also about how we scale, but we keep our costs under control. And I claim that customer success with our insights can help to plan those renewals and those upsells and cross-sells much better, much more effective. So the cost of acquisition of $1 per revenue will be lower, which is very good news for our CFO and for our CRO as well. That's reality check number 2. So this brings me to the key takeaway from today's session, which I will highlight now and I will highlight in the end. Customer success can be super instrumental in revenue planning and revenue forecasting because we have the information already. And I will talk about why it's important, and I will talk about how we're going to do it. Now, before we start, as I mentioned, we have CFO and we have CRO. Let's meet the team because we have a team here on the stage. And first one is Dana. Dana is our CFO. She's very strict, but if you look at her, there's a hidden smile because she might be very pleasantly surprised with what she will hear from us today. And we have Josh, our CRO, and he smiles like any good salesman will smile, right? But he has ambitious targets and aggressive targets to meet next year, and he's looking forward to collaborate with Andrea. And Andrea is our customer success lead or executive, and she has a global team, and she has a lot of insights to share. So these are the 3 stars of the show today. And last one but not least, this is me. My name is Guy Gallon. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Umbrella, and I've been 25 years in customer management roles, and this is the 5th year here on the stage in the customer conference. Very happy and delighted to be here with you today. As a side note, as you can see, all of my colleagues here are avatars. I was trying to play with my avatar, and I think it became a little bit more serious than I was planning. But don't worry, we are a good team together, positive energy, and stay tuned because those avatars are going to rock the stage. So let's ask the question why. Why your customer insights matter. And I believe that Andrea can inject energy and confidence to this renewal planning and renewal forecasting process. And you can see Josh and Dana are quite interested to hear what she has to say. And this brings us to the table that we all talk about, the seat that customer success has in the table. We have 3 seats, CFO, CRO, and the CS lead. And from my perspective, 3 reasons that make up for the question why. First of all, because our insights eventually translated to account plans, to success plans, depending on the industry and the customer size, and they all plan to drive actions. And from my perspective, those actions are not just customer success. These are actions are related to sales as well, and this is where we collaborate very well together. The second one is that predictability. We are injecting predictability to a process, and a forecasting by nature does not have all the information, right? We have blind spots. We are missing information. So if we want to do a more proper and a solid planning, we can use the insights from what we know about our customers, and I'll show some examples in a few minutes. And the third reason is that eventually we talk about revenue. So I shared with you before, it's a revenue execution, revenue planning. So if we have insights that will help to increase revenue and potentially reduce the cost and effort to achieve this revenue, this gives us a good reason to be here next to this table. Now, before we deep dive into the how, let's take a very quick look on the CFO and CRO view. And in customer success, we always say we like to understand how stakeholders think. These are our internal stakeholders, right? So how Dana, the CFO, thinks about revenue planning. And she has a revenue booked, which means she knows exactly how much contracts and agreements we have from previous year, and she can plan it, including the renewal for next year. Then she gets from her CEO or from the board, what are the growth targets for next year, which are translated to retention and new ARR. And new ARR, as we remember from reality check number 1, includes new logos and expansions. And she's doing usually those planning with sales, with CRO, with Josh. And I believe that she can do it as well with customer success. And when she has it, she has to do cost planning and budgets, how big the company will become, meaning how many people we need to recruit, where we are investing, travel budgets, AI, and all of that. And eventually she reports financial metrics to her board and to management based on the revenue plan and based on her budget plan. And Josh, I put him on a green background because he's optimistic, right? This is how sales operate, and we need to keep him hopefully positive and successful. And how he looks at revenue planning. He has existing pipeline. We have a CRM. Hopefully this CRM is up to date. We have hopefully a clean pipeline. So towards the end of the year, that's what I do in my company. I work with sales to see how the pipeline looks like. We're not focusing on new logos. We focus on those opportunities that we had last year with existing customers and which one of them is still relevant for next year. That's our starting point. And then Josh thinks about his new logos, about the renewals and expansion. Renewal and expansion, I would like him to think together with me. And then we can do a revenue projection, which is an ongoing process. It's not a one hit and we're finished. And then Josh can do his compensation negotiation with the CFO, do all the incentives, and split the targets to the sales team. And in the end of my session, I will give you an example how it looks like. So that's Josh's point of view. And I would like, before we deep dive into the renewals and expansion, to say something that will underline everything that I will say from now on. All of our customer insights are not just leading indicators for customer health on how we perceive adoption and value and all of that, but they are also leading indicators. That's the mindset change that we need to do for any revenue forecasting planning regarding our existing customers. And I gave a very high-level view. I took some examples of insights that we all monitor in customer success. The usage, active number of users, what meaningful usage customers do, the projection of how well they will do, engagement with our support team with customer success, engagement in our community, engagement with our content. Stakeholder sentiment, which is something that customer success knows very well. We monitor health score. We know what the customer objectives are, right? And we can understand how well they're doing their use cases and how successful or how they progress in their journey. And obviously, if we know a little bit more about the short to medium plan, that's another important input for our plans, commercial plans. And of course, we do anyway early churn indicators. So from our perspective, from a CS perspective, we can be more confident about renewals and expansion. The question is if we are aligned with sales, because in terms of sales and finance perspective, eventually translates to GRR and NRR. And I think many customer success teams today, including my teams, are now measured as well on GRR and NRR and financial metrics as well. So that's the high-level overview. Now let's talk about renewal. I'll talk about renewal and expansion separately. And when it comes to renewal, I like to tell my team that it's not only 1 or 0 game, because at certain cases, we can do our best, but customers hopefully stay or they leave. But the process to get there is much more granular and important. And I mentioned before the adoption and engagement indicators, the stakeholder relationship that we groom. Sometimes stakeholders leave and we are building relationship from scratch and we know what the sentiment is. So all of those things are, from my perspective, leading indicators as well. But there are 2 more indicators that I found to be very useful, and sometimes they are lost. I call them the hidden gems for CS and sales. The multi-year renewal aspect, and some customers who are very proficient with your product and they are very successful, they will be interested. Maybe you need to ask the question. And the second thing is early renewals. I had few cases where my champions were about to leave, change role, and they told me, let's do an early renewal before you lose your contract and somebody else will come in, which requires good instincts and good motions between you and your customers. And if I look at Andrea's plan, and this is a reflection of what I would do with my team before we go to sales, we are illustrating the logo names, a territory segment, and the planned renewal date. And then I add 5 example leading indicators that I mentioned this way or the other way before. The health score, the leading metrics. And when I say leading metrics, I gave some example, active number of users, or if you can measure meaningful usage, I classified it as a high, medium, or low. Renewal sentiment, and I kind of aligned it with the Salesforce terminology. So anything 90% and above is confident or commits, 70% positive, 50% neutral, and anything below that is a risk. And I'm adding multi-year renewal and early renewal. So with those 5 additional insights that I don't expect all the sales team to be aware of, right? I can create better forecasting of those renewals. And I took a very positive example, ABC company, AU means active users, 90%, MU means meaningful usage high. I have very positive, and we have good indications that they may go for early renewal and multi-year renewal. And stay tuned, because we'll see how this is actually translate to our collaboration with sales. And big deal, I took a more, let's say, average case, 75% of active users, meaningful usage, which is medium, no indication if they will be renewing or not. And I'm highlighting and framing this one again, because for the simple reason, I believe there could be other leading indicators. These are indicators that can be translated to something that you can inject to the sales forecasting and planning process. And when I look at Josh's plan, from his perspective, we have a logo, we have a target renewal date, we have a segment, and we have revenue expected. ABC is enterprise, 250K. The other one is SMB, 50K. And then we talk about probability. And this is what salespeople know how to do. Supposedly, they are supposed to be able to forecast and create a probability for the revenue that they are going to bring. And when I say probability, I give 2 examples that I've been experimented with, and one more which is, let's say, futuristic. The first one is a formula I can create. I provided here an example, health score, engagement score, sentiment. You can define it as well, assuming you have all those metrics, and you can build a certain formula that can help you. Maybe it's a bit of an old school. Another old school method is the customer success sales interaction. There is no formula, but a gut feeling. I had sales team that said, okay, let's classify it as high, medium, and low. That's okay as well. The third one is more interesting, and I'm sure in different parts of this conference you will hear about. This is, by the way, the AI part of this presentation. We can think about an agent that will scan all of our metrics, all our leading indicators, our history of renewals, churn analysis, industry benchmark, and provide a certain probability score that we can use together with sales. And then this probability translates to a sales or a customer success plan. And from a probability perspective, I gave 2 examples. Let's say the positive one is 87%, the other one is 58%. The more important thing is what we're going to do next. With the positive example, I can go with sales team now, because I know it's a Q3, the customer is interested in early renewal, we may be able to offer discount, and then go for this multi-year renewal, which is great. The second one is a classic customer success engagement challenge. Okay, we are not sure, we need to build a certain plan, certain steps to secure the renewal, and then we'll bring sales later on. And again, the frame part is the part where our indicators are being translated to a certain probability and a certain action. We help the sales team to be more focused. In my mind, it also helps us to control the effort and what we need to do as an organization. And eventually it translates from Dana and Josh and customer success to a renewal plan. Let's say we have a 90% retention target, and this renewal plan will be translated to quarter, region, segment, and sales rep. Now let's talk about expansions. And there are a lot of insights and consideration to take, and I try to summarize it shortly for this session. Again, the same mantra. It's not a 1 or 0 game. Yes, eventually it might be the case, but in expansion it's even more soft, because maybe now they will not expand, but maybe next quarter or within next 2 quarters they will expand. And I'm showing 4 items to consider. Last year's opportunities, because we have our customer success pipeline, I hope, or together with sales, and we can review, as I mentioned before, what we're going to have and what we think is qualified for next year. We know about the customer intentions, we know about the plans. Are they going to acquire a company, change technology, change a support system, a tool? increase AI and automation. There are so many other things that customers are planning. And we know about their timing, supposed to inquire about the timing and try to align what we think, when they think they will go to expand with their plans, and budget, which is always a challenge. Customers don't wave the budget flag. It's a natural evolution of our discussion, of our knowledge, and the trust that we have with customers. And it's something that once we know about it, it makes the opportunity much more qualified. No budget, no additional revenue, no opportunity. Now, let's take a look at how it looks like from Andrea's point of view. And this is an example of, again, how I do expansion planning with my team. Okay, we are looking at last year's opportunities, then we look at the potential new opportunities that we'll have this year. And one of them, I gave 3 different examples. The US company, they told us that they will be acquiring another company. We are expecting in Q1 additional number of users that will be subscribed to our platform. The probability in this case is not a sales probability. That's a customer success probability, and I encourage you to do so, because if everybody sells, as we mentioned before, also customer success can assess this probability. And then you can negotiate or discuss it together with sales. The enterprise in the UK, they have been using our platform very extensively, and they will upgrade. We believe they will upgrade. We gave it 50%. The 50% is because I have discussion with the customers about the adoption and additional features, but it's not yet decided when, and this is why I keep it, let's say, at 50%. And the third customer in Germany, MAG, they're using our API. Let's say it's a usage-based model, and they've been growing organically, and we can see that they have more plans for automation. So we know how to translate it to additional usage bucket that they will need next year. They already said that 70% from my perspective is that we haven't yet started any paperwork or discussion about pricing, but the intention is there. And again, those 2 last columns, our insights and the probability or confidence that we have is what will eventually translate to our planning together with sales. And if we want to look at what sales plan looks like, and I said that in the beginning, let's look at, because they have quarterly plans. Let's look at Alex in the UK, and he has 200K target to deliver. And the new logo part of it, the gauge is red. The gauge is red not because he's not necessarily going to deliver, but it's more risky to predict, and it's more risky to plan because we simply don't know enough about those prospects. On the other hand, the renewal, this is where we can be very helpful. We can reduce the risk of prediction and planning to green, because we know enough, and we've seen that, to be able to provide a good plan for Alex and his team to deliver. And expansion, I would say it's somewhere in the middle. It's not as risky as renewal, but it's also much more predictable than new logos. And I believe, based on my relationship with sales teams over the years, if you are able to help Alex and the team, and Josh and his team, to be more confident about the renewal and expansion, you have a very good collaboration and a lot of value to provide. Now let's talk about challenges. I said in the beginning, it's not standard yet. So from Josh's perspective, he may have his own forecasting methodology. My suggestion and my suggestions to you, inquire about forecasting assumptions. Why they think that certain customers will grow next year. Try to validate their assumptions, offer some advice, show them some information, share some information that maybe they don't have. Do it in an iterative approach, because maybe they are not ready yet for a full annual plan. Maybe we can do it 1 quarter or 2 quarters, one after the other, or in a specific region, or with some sellers that collaborate well with sales, and build this trust. And as you build this trust, you can go to Dana with Josh, present the customer success pipeline, present a very solid plan forecasting that is based on facts and insights, and demonstrate some retention and success stories, which will make Dana also more secured, and hopefully she will smile at the end of the session. So we talked about this new concept. We talked about why, we talked about the how, and we talked about some challenges. So let me conclude with a quote that I feel is very inspirational, and it's from Nelson Mandela. And he said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." And I think in our reality, I hope that all of us will just experience customer wins, but sometimes we also lose. But every loss is also an opportunity to win, and I feel that it's very much relevant to what we heard today from Oran Samuel in the morning. And this is also, in the context of this session, it's a new idea, it's a new concept. So we might be struggling in the beginning, but it's a very good opportunity for us to learn and to grow professionally. Now, if there's one action that I would like you to take 1 hour this week or next week to try and write down your insights about upcoming renewals and expansions in your book of business. And I need 1 more minute, please, if that's okay, because I had 25. Use my template that I've shared with you, or use a different template. That's your starting point. And as you do that, remember 3 aspects that we mentioned in the session today. Your existing customer engagements will gradually become a bigger portion of the revenue plan in your own organization. Second, your insights inject more confidence and transparency to this process. And with this confidence, you will gain more traction with sales and finance. Obviously, there will be some challenges, and you will need to prove your value, and this is why we have this session today. But if you leverage your CSM motion with your insights and knowledge and a willingness to learn and collaborate, I promise you that you will not only better impact the revenue forecasting and planning in your own organization, you will be able to better collaborate with sales and finance, you will win more deals, and you will also receive the recognition that you really deserve with a seat in the table. And remember, by the end of the day, it's all about your ability to leverage your insights and create positive impact on revenue planning and forecasting. Thank you very much.